If you've ever sat and watched trail cam footage late at night, then you probably know what I'm about to talk about. At first, you see deer and they're just kind of walking through, but after watching enough footage, you start to notice patterns. A doe stops at the exact same spot every few nights. An axis herd shows up like a scheduled shift change. A buck steps into frame, it freezes, and then it stares into the dark, most likely because he heard something. Then it clicks to you. Deer aren't just passing by, they're reading the world constantly. And in the Texas Hill Country, that gets even more interesting because you're often watching two styles of deer in the same place. Whitetail, which were built for cover, shadows, and quick decisions. And then you have axis deer, who are often more comfortable in the open, and they move in larger groups. They both follow the same landscape, but they play by different playbooks. One of the easiest things to miss on trail cameras is how much deer rely on familiarity. Most deer build a routine around a home area. Food spots, bedding areas, travel routes, and they tend to return to what they know. That's why you'll see some of the trails worn into the ground. It's a route. And when something changes, pressure, disturbance, a close call, deer tend to adjust. Sometimes they shift where they bed, and sometimes they change when they move. And if you've ever felt like your trail cam went dead, but nothing actually left the property, it might be that the deer didn't disappear. They just got smarter. Now here's the part that turns ordinary footage into a story. Deer, they're prey animals, so their lives depend on noticing what's off. They're built to pick up movement. They're built to catch a sound that doesn't belong and to smell something in the air that wasn't there yesterday. And when a deer thinks something's wrong, it usually doesn't bolt instantly. A lot of times the first move is stillness. They freeze. They angle their head and they scan. That's not hesitation. They're making decisions. And once they commit to leaving, the escape style depends on the habitat. Deer that live in open places often run hard and they keep running. But deer that live in thicker cover, like whitetails, they have another tool. They use the terrain. They cut through brush, they zig when you expect them to go straight, and they pick routes that break line of sight. So if you're watching a whitetail on camera and it suddenly snaps its head, turns and disappears into the trees like smoke, that's not luck, that's design. There are a few deer behaviors that are basically subtitles, if you know what you're looking at. There's the tail flash, which is like a white flag. That's when a whitetail raises that bright white tail and runs. It's not just a panic button, it can also be a signal, an alert that something is wrong, especially when other deer are nearby. And then there's stomping. There's that quick stomp you'll see sometimes. It's a warning move, a way to say, I see something and I'm not sure I like it. And then there's snorting. Snorting is that sharp blast of air. It shows up every now and then in footage, more than people realize, and sometimes the cameras don't even pick it up. But it's one of the clearest, danger-detected signals deer have. And here's something I like about trail cams. They catch the moment right before the decision. You'll see everything playing out right in front of you. The ears lock forward, the body kind of stiffens, and the head goes high. And for a second, everything is quiet. Everything is still. And the woods kind of rearrange themselves. And if your best deer clips are at night, you're not alone. A lot of deer become more active after dark when there's pressure. Hunting pressure, human activity, disturbances around feeding areas. So when you're watching hill country footage like mine and thinking, why do they only show up at 2 a.m.? Part of the answer is simple. Nighttime is safer. The same deer can be in the same general area, but shift their movement window to avoid problems. And trail cams don't just show animals, they show how the animals adapt. Now, deer absolutely use sound, especially mothers and young. Fawns will call out when they're stressed or separated, and the mothers will respond. And over time, they learn each other's voices. But the bigger communication system is quieter. It's scent. Deer leave messages behind the way we leave footprints, except theirs are invisible. They've got scent sources on their legs and feet, and as they walk trails, they're basically laying down information. That's why deer stop and sniff the ground so often. They're not just smelling dirt. They're reading who was here, how long ago, and whether it's worth being cautious. They also use things like rubbing and scent marking behaviors, leaving scent on vegetation or in specific spots. So the landscape becomes a kind of message board. So when you see a deer pause at the same tree or circle and sniff one patch of ground like it matters, it does matter. And then there's one of my favorite parts of deer behavior, because it catches people off guard. Deer like to play, especially young deer. You'll see them chasing, jumping. You'll see quick bursts of movement that don't look like feeding, and they don't look like fear. It can look silly until you realize what it really is. It's practice. These deer are testing speed, they're testing balance, and they're testing reactions. Even sparring can show up this way, especially when younger males are involved. It's not always a full fight. A lot of it is controlled. And what they're doing essentially is they're rehearsing for later, when the rut goes in full effect. Because when they're older, the same movements carry real consequences. So those playful little head pushes and short shoves, that's training. And that's why I love running cameras out here. The Texas Hill Country isn't just a pretty backdrop, it's a living chessboard. Whitetails slipping through brush, using the cover as strategy, and axis deer moving in groups, scanning and showing up in large groups like clockwork. They're different deer and they're different styles, but they follow the same ancient goal: eat, survive, avoid trouble, and keep moving. And once you learn what to look for, the footage kind of changes. A deer freezing isn't nothing happening. It's a decision being made, and it's a very important decision. A tail flash isn't just a tail, it's a signal. And a pause and a sniff isn't random. It's information. So if you got trail cams running, or you just love watching wildlife, watch long enough and deer really do tell a story. And if you enjoyed this kind of story layered over real Texas footage, take it as a reason to get outside and pay attention to what's living around you. For more Texas outdoors and wildlife, this is Matt out here, and I'll see y'all in the next one.